Hi, and welcome to this special show. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and of course, this is a show that we do in association with Businessworld. Well, the world has stopped, and so had the economy to a large extent because of the nuisance of a pandemic called COVID-19. The government rolled out some initiatives which blew hot and cold, meaning that some of us hailed it, and some of us thought it leaves a lot to be desired. But let's today speak to the movers and shakers of the business galaxy in India and listen in to their suggestions and also listen in to their critique. Let me, in fact, welcome them one by one. Mr. Blaise Fernandes, President and CEO of the Indian music industry, also known as IMI, is here with us. Mr. Fernandes, appreciate you joining us and welcome to the show. Mr. Sabas Joseph, co-founder and director, Wizcraft International, will also be joining us. In fact, is with us. Mr. Joseph, pleasure to have you here. Mr. Tej Kapoor, co-executive president of RZ Capital, is also here with us. Mr. Gurpreet Singh, co-founder and COO of One Digital Entertainment, is also here with us on the panel. Mr. Singh.
Yeah,
welcome. Mr. R.K. Jain will also be joining us momentarily. Mr. Sujay Kalele, founder of True Reality, is also with us. Ms. Shraddha Sood, founder of Mama Couture, is also joining us on the panel. And last, but by no means, as always, the least, the chairman and editor-in-chief of the Businessworld and Exchange for Media Group, my partner in crime, Dr. Anurag Gupta. Anurag, welcome to the show. Mr. Fernandes, let me start by asking you, very simple, very, very Prozac and a plain question for you. We've been doing this for quite some time now. What did you make of the stimulus package? Did it live up to your expectations? Or do you think that there are a lot of loopholes in it which will be felt in a ripple effect kind of a way, for a long time to come?
Thanks for the opportunity. I think let me start with by saying I'll divide your question, the answer into two parts. The first part is how does it impact the media and entertainment industry? There is nothing in it for us in the media and entertainment industry. We are a 1% contribution to the national GDP. Most developed countries and most countries which have a strong origin of music, dance, cinema and storytelling culture and liberal democracies like America and UK contribute 4% to the national GDP. We are 1%. The 3% deficit that's there or it will happen with structural changes. What we are facing right now is a cyclical change. And I foresee that 1% contribution going down to even 0.25%. That's going to be the impact because production has halted. Cinemas are no longer running. Okay, the music industry depends a lot on the OSTs. The live sector has been completely stopped, and there's no chance of it reviving till the new normalcy. And even the new normal, we don't know how it's going to pan out, what's going to be the impact on, the attendance at cinemas or concerts or shows or performances. And lastly, I think, at the second level, this for Prime Minister Modi was the New Deal, what FDR did way back in the 1990s. I mean, he's tried to attempt to do whatever he could with the limited resources that he had, but we'll discuss that at a later stage, we'll flesh it out. But these are my opening comments. The media and entertainment industry does nothing in it for us. We are looking at shaving off, a lot of our value that we create. Everybody's talking about the shift to OST, but please remember, OST is a big potential, but a very small component to the contribution to the entire media and entertainment sector.
Okay, Anurag, you'll have to unmute yourself.
You were also part of Gateway House, the think tank. Now, what do you think the government could have done for the economy more and for your sector more?
Okay, I think for the sector, if I'm going to look at FDR's playbook when he kind of revived the US economy, he did two things. He started massive, large-scale projects. Like the example is the Golden Gate Bridge was part of FDR's New Deal. Another part of the New Deal that FDR brought out at that time was an entire stimulus to the entire creative community. What the government could have done for us in the creative sector is, take for example, 500 to 600 crores is stuck with as minimum guarantees to the film sector. I mean, what we could have done for the music industry is given us soft loans, wiped off, waivers of interest, because if 50% of our 1,000 crore industry stuck in terms of inventory, there's no money to play with. I think a good stimulus would be oxygenate the entire industry. Another thing that they could have done, a low-hanging fruit, the piracy content in the pandemic has jumped manifold. I think the government is well in a position to stop these pirated, without much effort, to stop these pirate channels, at least drive traffic towards the legitimate channels. And I think this is something he could have done. I mean, Anurag, there's a lot that can be done. I mean, I welcome personally the MSME stimulus that is happening. The devil is always in the details and the execution, but I'm hopeful that this government will execute that well. What has been done for the agricultural sector is also very, very important. And I think, especially on, categorizing them, branding them, and giving them a stimulus, which will happen, which is good. But the third point that I'm trying to which I'd like to draw is opening up the important space technology sector. I think that's a big, I think, and the defense sector. I think there's been a lot of reforms taking place there. India is a big defense, is a big buyer of defense equipment. There'll be a lot of traction there in terms of employment generation, but that's all in the medium to the long term. What we need right now is a short-term stimulus, and that short-term stimulus should have happened for the entertainment and media sector, the other sectors also. Lastly, I think lastly, I just finished this. My last point is, I think what's standing out for India right now is the Indian e-commerce ecosystem is COVID resistant. And you see the kind of investments, be it the Jio platform is raising or news coming out that there could be a deal between Amazon and Airtel. Vodafone is looking at, Google is looking at Vodafone. I think that's the big story coming out of COVID-19. And if reforms can tag along with the e-commerce sector, that could be the stimulus for the agricultural sector, be it from farm to fork or for the MSMEs. And I think that's the silver lining in this entire COVID-19.
All right. Mr. Joseph, let's talk about the events industry. Obviously, owing to the situation that the world finds itself in, owing to what the country finds itself in, these are bad times for the events industry.
I think the event industry has just died. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like it's a bad time. I think it just has completely collapsed into what can be fitted onto a laptop or a mobile phone. That's what has become of the events industry. The reality is this, that COVID-19 has just made, events are based on bringing people together. But if you're having to tell people, stay apart, it's very difficult at the same time to tell you, please come to an event. So it's going through its own crisis. I think I've always said we will have a low kind of margin of recovery. Slowly we will recover over maybe a year or two. It's going to take that long to even come back to normal. I think you've got the recovery having begun with 50 people in a wedding or 50 people in an event being allowed at the present moment. Maybe that will go to 250, maybe that will go to 500. And hopefully over the next few months, one will see some kind of recovery and some kind of action happening there. But Blaze is completely correct. There is a complete lack of sight about the short term. And there has been no impetus, no incentive, no stimulus package available or any solutions available for the short term. And that is, be it you're a large company, be it you're the smallest company, there have been no solution. Even the MSME solutions that have come in, I don't think they're really practical to start with. The second part is this, to implement that is another nightmare. So I don't know where we're going to land up out there. The reality is this, even if you've been given the opportunity to delay your paybacks of EMIs, etc., you're still paying interest on that. You're paying interest over interest. So you're being encouraged to take more money, but pay more interest on that. So it's not really a solution. It's like walking on quicksand for the long term. And that is really the crisis that's facing everybody. Having said that, I don't think the government has the resources to be able to deal with the challenge. Okay, maybe the money is not there, that I understand, but the ideas can be there. And the ideas can be literally a conversation, looking at solutions, looking at SOPs for the event industry to start. Even today, the event industry could commence operations at 50, 100, 200 people. But there are no solutions really in conversation. There's no government ready to open doors for a conversation. And that's the sad part. Because if a conversation doesn't happen, there's no solution in sight.
So, Bas, what would you have liked to see in the package, specifically for, let's say, event managers? Would you have liked to see some specific measures, say GST off for the next 2 years for event managers? What is it that you're asking from the government?
I think one, we would have liked to see GST being knocked off, one, but that's really not so much of a solution. TDS being knocked off, you pay at the end of the year on the basis of the taxes that are, so at least you have your cash flow sorted out. You've got government orders that will come in, release the taxes, release funds that is available, payments that are due from government to agencies, that should be paid up immediately, without question. And I think there should have been, without collateral, short-term loans or long-term loans or very marginal interest to be charged on them, available to companies so that they could retain their staff, not have to lay off people, not have to send people on furloughs, etc. Because what have we done? We've only created a larger crisis by creating unemployment. Job creation is at an all-time low. And finally, you've got people out there without jobs and they don't even have the will to be consumers and have the consumer power. So we've destroyed the economy in every respect. So somewhere we require to work together to be able to protect the economy, protect the consumer, so that the consumer has the capacity to buy. He has to have spending power. You've taken that away from him.
Absolutely. H. Kapoor, let me come to you. What's your response to the stimulus package? Obviously, short-term gains and short-term planning was the need of the hour. And in fact, that is one element that has completely been ignored, in this entire stimulus.
Thanks, Vineet and Anurag, to have me on the show, first of all. And how I put it is, we need both painkillers and vitamins to get over from this COVID crisis. And it is unfortunate time, like Sir was just mentioning. So every industry is going through pain. I think the government had best interest in their heart. But, we always know that as money trickles down, it always takes time. We had a comment from the SBI chairman who made a comment saying that nobody is coming to me for money. So I think there is some disconnect in terms of trickling down. There are industries which really need far more stimulus than we have seen. I think the intentions, I would give government the credit for having the right intentions. But, as we can see from the industry leaders, the trickling down effect is still to be seen. At the same time, like Sir was mentioning, I come from a startup world and startup investing. In that scenario, we have seen, some good, fortunate things happen, obviously, with the Reliance deal. Just to put it in context, Reliance has raised approximately $12 billion US, which is almost equivalent to the entire money raised by the VC community in last year. Now that money coming into play will have a big role for our Kiryana shops, etc. Obviously, we have to go through this pain together. I think there are things which we need to focus on, particularly Make in India. We need to make all our industries self-reliant, as we know, and we need to start supporting our startups and event industries and MSMEs who are really the blood of the nation, I would say.
Like you represent the funding sector and the startup sector, there's a real worry that the revenues of startups have gone to zero or close to zero, no funding coming, 60-70% of the startups will fold. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think as you rightly pointed out, Anurag, this is a very, very difficult time. I think cash is your best friend at the moment. and there are a lot of distressed deals in the startup community as well. And a lot of these guys, as you know, don't come from business environment. I mean, what is happening, unfortunately, I would say, is that the large businesses are getting flushed with money. If you look at the stock market, particularly in last 4 weeks, it's gone up significantly. But are we really putting the money to our MSMEs, to the event sector? I mean, that is disappointing to see. And similar structure is startup, because startups are the, sort of the starting point for us, and we are seeing a lot of stress in that. So I would definitely urge to the government to look into, some of the new things that they can launch for particularly company which is less than certain turnover, which will overall fuel the economy. Also, other thing I want to add is credit. There is a big credit crunch, Anurag, huge credit crunch, which we see in the smaller businesses. So whatever we can do to help them, and and we hear statement from SBI chairman in terms of people not asking for money. There's a big sort of a gap which we need to close here, and I think the credit needs to flow down so that all our panelists who are hardworking entrepreneurs sitting here can see the money flow, and let us go through this tough time, at least for for the time being. I mean, that US has pumped in trillions of dollars. I think, like I said, intention is right, and execution is where I need to see more momentum.
Gurpreet, you're an entrepreneur in the digital space.
Yeah.
And again, digital transformation, and Blaze alluded to how e-commerce will play a role in the Indian economy kind of coming up. Tell us your reactions to the stimulus package, and where do you see the economy going?
See, I think as far as digital content industry is concerned, these are very strange times, because all the platforms, all the content creators have always chased for the reach, have always chased for the numbers. And these are the times when they are getting the numbers. They're getting unparalleled reach, unparalleled numbers out there. But unfortunately, the revenues have dipped down. And partly, I think most of the linkage with the economy stimulus package has been very well put by Blazer and Subhash. But beyond that, I think we are heavily impacted by advertising industry, because a large part of the revenue depends on how advertisers are spending monies on the platforms, on all these platforms, YouTube or other platforms as such. So that's something which have dipped down a lot. But I would say still we are fortunate to be in a space where it has not gone down to zero. We feel very much for our friends in the live industry, and where the entire revenues have gone down completely zero. For us, it has dipped down. It has dipped down to 40%, 50% at times on days. But we are still surviving, and we are also very, very indirectly linked with how the rest of the Indian economy comes out, and how the entire advertisers industry comes out, and they start spending money back onto digital, and I feel for the TV broadcasters as well.
Sujay, you come from the real estate sector.
Yeah.
Now, the real estate sector is facing a triple whammy. You have loans that you are unable to pay. I'm talking the sector, not.
Yes.
You're unable to pay. There is weak consumer demand on the commercial side, on the residential side. Retail is impacted because the retailers are not doing any sales. So tell us, how is the real estate sector seeing the economy and the economic stimulus that has come from the government?
I think there is, the stimulus per se, like our Honorable Prime Minister had said, consists of what RBI has done and what the government has done. I think what RBI has done on providing liquidity into the market is already seeing with, as latest as yesterday with State Bank of India slashing the MCLR to 7%. I think that has direct impact on the home loan rates and the new demand. With the interest rate further expected to go down, I think anything near or less than 7% on the home loan rate should definitely provide a good fillip. But having said that, the government per se hasn't, other than giving extension for 6 months, there hasn't been much for the real estate sector as a whole. Even the long-standing demand of one-time restructuring of loans or, stuff like that hasn't been met. Before COVID, real estate has been, as you rightly said, facing a lot of headwinds. And I think this as you say, the COVID and work from home and all the new things that have come up has certainly changed. Commercial was the best performing asset class pre-corona. Suddenly, during the last 60 to 70 days, people have realized that it's the same amount of work that can happen probably much more productively sitting at home also. So the likes of TCS, Axis, all the big occupiers have suddenly gone out on the record and said that in the next 5 years, we plan to have 75% of our workforce work from homes. Now, what that will do to commercial real estate is anyone's call. But suddenly, residential, which was laggard for the last 5 years, where we have seen long time correction, some pockets and some micro markets seeing price correction too, has suddenly found flavor. So it's a complete 360-degree reversal of asset classes and the favor. It has certain, industrial warehousing demand. It was always on the upswing, and with more e-commerce and people likely to order more, given the convenience and the safety, that asset class will attract more capital and more opportunities will emerge. Retail, it's very easy to write obituary, but in the last 12 years, it has gone through many such cycles, and we feel that it will kind of invigorate itself. It's very difficult to, we always go to malls not only to shop, but also to entertain and socialize. And, it might take certain time and, some amount of reworking of deals and all of that will happen, but entertainment and retail will come back, although in a different avatar, having said that. But on, RBI has done its job phenomenally well, given, whatever resources it had. But on the demand side, the government, even a simple, in the industry representations that we have given to the Honorable FM and many, CREDAI platforms, no one asked for any waiver, right? So as an industry, we never asked for a waiver. We only asked for time. And a simple thing like one-time restructuring of loans also hasn't been given. So what is it that the government is expecting when you don't have revenues, right? And you suddenly see that on the practical, on ground, home loans which are sanctioned, which are part disbursed of the customers, all banks have suddenly started re-evaluation of those. Now, what will that do, right? Leave aside MSME, like one of our experts rightly said, practical implementation. When you look at who will benefit out of the MSME credit guarantee fund, it is those corporates who already have an outstanding loan of 25 crore as of end February are eligible to get more loans. So balance sheets which are already leveraged, you want to further leverage them. But the corporates who have been, or companies who have been slightly, more stricter on the managing the debt and liabilities part, there have been no benefits to them, right? So a little more, help on the demand side would have helped. Like, for example, can the government give 3-month, support on the income just in case there is a default, or the customer? We are not even saying that give us time, give us security, right? If the government feels they could have cross-subsidized or supported the customers, which indeed would have reduced the risk proportion or risk perception that a customer has. Today, the customer it will further take time. I don't know.
I think thank you for those specific inputs. Shraddha, you heard all the other panelists. What are your remarks as an entrepreneur on the economic stimulus and where the Indian economy headed?
Thanks, Anurag. So I think I come from a pure startup background, and that's what I represent here, and that's what my thoughts are about today. Basically, I think all the panelists have covered most of the very important points. I will say that my points are exactly on the front that there's a huge gap between what the government has intended and what it has implemented, and execution, I think, is still very far away. We are yet to see the story far from execution. I think a positive execution would be what we're all looking out for, but I think it's a very, very difficult stage in India to get a very, very, I would say, lucrative implementation. At the startup level, everybody is bleeding. The real story on ground is the biggest failure at the government level was the migrants collapse. That led to a lot of workforce leaving overnight, businesses, manufacturing units, warehouses, business owners didn't know what to do the next day. Even if they were willing to pay salaries, they could not open their essential businesses because workers went home. On ground, those businesses are not able to have revenue. A startup works month to month. It does not work and wait for a stimulus package to come on board. And when it comes, you get a CA who understands the package. These are really on ground understandings that are devoid of an entrepreneur because it's unprecedented times.
Shraddha, we were talking about the migrant crisis, but there has been an attempt by the government, to in fact, increase the liquidity status of the country. But at the same time, liquidity has to be offset by demand as well. And you spoke of, the migrant crisis, which was manhandled and mishandled by the government. Do you think that all of these interrelated and interconnected aspects, paint a very grim picture for at least the next 6 to 10 months?
Yes, actually, because I think all startups are reacting on the previous experience that we've had with, let's say, the first outcome of the lockdown was the migrant collapse, right? The second offer by the government was a stimulus package. So let's wait and see what that brings out. I don't think we can predict today what the 6 and 9 months are going to come, what they're going to hold for us. But definitely the startups are not going to be able to hold much longer if there's not a direct shot in the arm of some sort of credit lines or different packages that can come directly to the startups. I'm not talking about the MSMEs. You understand the definition did get revised to include companies in, but that does not mean it for the real startups who are running at 7, 10, 15 employees hold, running their close-held units. Those are real startups who are trying to then scale up, and they're currently in the build the business level. They're not at the scale-up level even. They are, and they have shut shop. Many of them have. And that's truly the very first issue they all faced was the migrant walkout overnight, like I said. So that was one of the very big reasons I think people are not, or rather they're apprehensive of what this execution can be done. I mean, we're waiting. Maybe it's the central government with the RBI have tried a very good stimulus package, 10% of the GDP. I think hats off to them to try and give such a big number. The country is complicated. I think we have vast nature of businesses. It's not easy to give, one size fits all sort of solution from their side. But currently, I think we will not be able to say that the market sentiment or the consumer sentiment or the demand is going to pick up because that's not been created by the government yet. It's left to the startups and the business owners to do. That's a very tall task. And all we say is that wait and watch. And who has a pocket size, cash is your best friend, definitely. But who has a pocket size will survive, and who don't probably may not.
All right. Thank you, Shraddha. Mr. Jain, you'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Jain. You'll have to unmute yourself. You come from the travel tourism sector. Now, that's a sector which has a huge impact on GDP. It creates jobs at the local level. The government hasn't done much for your sector. And your sector, till some time back, was zero revenue or close to zero, 5%, 6% occupancy in hotels. So tell us, what are your initial thoughts on the economic stimulus, Mr. Jain?
Thank you, Mr. Batra.
You have to be a bit louder.
Thank you, Mr. Batra, and thank you for having me in the group. In fact, if I start with, I should start with the importance.
You'll have to be louder, Mr. Jain. You'll have to be very loud. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I must start explaining the importance and to understand the importance of the travel industry. In fact, if we see the travel and tourism industry in the context of government's vision of self-reliant India, the terminology VVIP is termed as very, very important person, but I have included in our travel industry this VVIP word. What the VVIP means is, in our travel industry, this is vision, this is value, and the important potentiality in the aviation and tourism sector.
So we understand the importance of this sector. We would want you to directly come to what is your response to the economic stimulus? What are your asks from the government?
Yes.
So I think we understand how important the travel tourism industry is. So we would want, we keep your comments ready. Please let me come back to you. let me come back to you. Now, you heard everybody, they come from various sectors, and there's a feeling that what matters is bringing liquidity, bringing credit right up front, and front-loading the reforms. What do you have in terms of specific suggestions for the government and for the business and economy ecosystem?
Anurag, thank you. I think what the system needs is oxygenating the whole ecosystem. 100-day plan, revive the golden quadrilateral project and all the tributaries, interlinking of rivers. That's a massive project. First thing to do is to get a veteran like Mr. Sridharan, the metro man, to head a panel to ensure all the disputes that are there, because right now in the golden quadrilateral there are lots of disputes. I'm not sure about the figure, but something like 20,000 crores are the disputes. Resolve those disputes. Make sure that the contractors, the big players get the liquidity. They can restart their work. If you revive the big, the golden quadrilateral, the kickstart for the steel economy, there's a kickstart for the cement economy, the transportation economy, and the allied economies automatically. Once liquidity comes into systems, once the confidence is built, then automatically, the economy gets revived. The other thing that is with the big infrastructure projects, there are huge disputes in terms of ecology. Get a Supreme Court judge with adequate representation from all the departments, Eco Department, Agriculture Department, Forest Department, and resolve these issues so that, you're not getting stuck into the regular, fast track these cases, ensure that the golden quadrilateral, the interlinking of rivers, and all the big infrastructure projects. And this is not my idea. This is something which I've taken from FDR's 100-day plan to revive the economy. The other thing that needs to be done is, I think, civil society needs to be involved even more. Be it think tanks, be it NGOs, be it activists. These are people who come with professional domain. Okay, they come with people, they have experience. Okay, and I think this is something that you've got to get them involved. They'll find solutions for you because they do this for a daily living. They'll find solutions to you across all societies. The other big thing, and I think we missed this round, but it's not too late. We need to build warehouses for storing energy, especially given the petrol prices. Okay, we've kind of got a huge, we've got infrastructure on the eastern coast of India. It comes under a company called ISPRL, which is a public sector undertaking. We need, this is again cement, construction, steel. We need to build warehousing, and with the oil prices that they will be in the next 18 months or so, it's a great option.
Even warehousing for food grains.
I'm coming to that. These are big ticket items. That comes under. I think the government is trying to do something. Yes, we need to build infrastructure, but these are the big infrastructure projects, Anurag. If you kind of stimulate them, the oxygen in the industry.
Short and medium term. Mr. Jain, we come back to you. Tell us what can you'll have to unmute yourself and tell us what are your expectations from the government for the hospitality and tourism sector?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Anurag. In fact, we want really the direct help from the government.
Okay.
So that our industry can revive and it can survive. The question of survival is difficult for us.
Absolutely.
Since this aviation industry started, this is a great crisis the whole world has seen.
So, sir, specific suggestions. We understand the background and that's why we're doing this show. So, what are the specifics asked from the government?
Our suggestion to the government is that they should provide direct help to us.
Define that direct help.
Direct help.
Okay. Define that. Quantify that.
Like deferment of fees, deferment of interest, deferment of principal, deferment of the electricity and the water bills. And we need the direct help from the government so that our employees can be paid salaries. We have been paying salaries to the government. We have been paying electricity expenses. And with the zero income, from where we shall bring the money? So we request the government to give us direct help.
Understood. I think that, thank you for the specific.
But Mr. Jain, the government doesn't believe in direct benefits. It doesn't believe in direct benefits, and that is another reason why it's been criticized. Mr. Joseph, let me come to you. In fact, Anurag wanted to ask you a question. Anurag, go ahead.
Sabas, your industry again has come to, you started by saying it's the death of the event industry. You know, the revenues have come to us zero. You know, there's no events happening. And it has a multiplier impact. You know, when a event is being held, you know, you put up infrastructure for it, so it provides employment to a lot of people in the construction side. So, you know, apart from the artists getting paid, there is a lot of people who are in the basic minimum sustainability wage who get paid. Now, what do you think the government can do going forward? If the package was a stage one, package one, installment one, what do you think the government can do in the next 90, 120 days to kickstart your sector?
I think the first thing that the government needs to do is needs to understand and put in place SOPs to be able to conduct events. To start with, get the business started. If the business doesn't start, the government can only be giving out dole, and that's not the solution for anybody. Okay, so I'm saying get the SOPs in place so that all governments, all city councils, state governments, etc., begin to see the opportunity of getting people together and let the events industry, let events, let parties, let whatever else continue first. Two is really we, as a country and the world, we are facing today a fight between lives and livelihood. And in the fight between lives and livelihood has to win. Because, and that's what's happening, which you had a lockdown for indefinite period, and you've had to unlock it completely. And yes, in unlocking, we seem to be going berserk.
Okay.
Right, Sabas.
I think it has to. It needs to provide a stimulus to be able to re-employ people who are out of jobs, daily wage earners. Be it the film industry, be it the events industry, be it different areas. I mean, look at the musicians and cultural artists who are living on daily wages. What have they done in this last 90 days? It's a complete disaster for everybody. Now you try to get them back into work and let them be able to earn their wages. As long as they're able to earn their wages, we'll be back on a road of recovery. One. Two is, I think companies should be provided waivers of GST. They should be delayed TDS deductions, and definitely loans made a lot easier to be able to fund it at a lower interest rate. If you're not able to do that and you're not able to revive your businesses, the economy itself will begin to shut down. And that's the biggest nightmare. It's not the big companies who are going to suffer. The smaller ones, somehow the other will find a way because they're 2-member, 5-member organizations. They'll survive. It's the ones that are stuck in between that will really feel the collapse and feel the heat.
Okay, you heard Sabas say, talking about musicians and artists. Do you think digitally they can earn their livelihood and it can be sustainable for them?
I think, and Sebastian knows this more than me. There are platforms right now trying to do live concerts, but honestly, that's not a habit with the consumers. Consumers are not going to just watch the content or to see the performances. They are going for an experience, right? You can't deliver that experience of going to a concert or going to a party sitting at home. So people have been trying. There are investments being made. There are startups being acquired to launch those platforms. But honestly, like I said, it's a habit issue, right? That people are not used to pay a ticket price to go. I mean, they would still be happy to watch some concert live on Instagram Live, but that does not translate to revenue.
Do you think that that's an alien concept? Because, you know, the Home Minister Amit Shah held a rally today, a virtual rally. So it's just a matter of getting, acclimatized to.
Even if you have that, no one's paying for it. Neither the sponsor paying for it, neither the consumer paying for it. So you're performing for free. That's even worse than not performing.
Yeah. Vinit, you can go right now.
That you are performing. Wow.
Yeah. So musicians have been going live on platforms. They have been performing live. They have been getting a lot of traffic, but that's pretty much it. They are getting likes, not the money.
Okay.
What are the sectors that hence
one second,
investor is looking at
Mr. Joseph, is it correct to say that the government perhaps has not looked into the peripheral economy the superficial economy, the entertainment economy, and has only focused on the core of the economy, and that's perhaps not gone down well with a lot of people, including someone from your sector.
The truth is this: an industry like ours, the live events industry, employs over 10 million people. Now, that is no longer the peripheral industry in real terms. If you look at what the advertising sector, what the music business, what the cinema business finally is employing, we're looking at 50 million people being employed in the sector. And if the government has not looked at this sector, be it what's happening in television, what's happening in music, what's happening in cinema, I mean, actors are paying for daily wage workers, their means and their fees. I mean, that's not the way you look at an economy or an industry. It should be running on its own. The government should be looking after it. People should be protected. Businesses should be protected. And it's not based on charity. And that's the worst thing. We're coming down to a point wherein people have got to survive on charity, and that's not acceptable to me. We have to find solutions that are laid out by government structure, business structure, and the economy has to be able to support these businesses.
Yeah.
So I was asking you, we need to talk about is it a peripheral part? And Sabas has beautifully explained how it is at the core of the economy. But tell us, what are the sectors as you as an investor looking at? What are the sectors you see coming up in the next 90 to 180 days?
Yeah. So Anurag, I think first of all on Sir's comment, I think it's pretty tight for the event industry. We've seen Book My Show sort of almost go down to zero revenue. But on the other side, you've got Netflix that has seen its share price surge almost like 50 to 60%. So it's both sides of the coin. I think, unfortunately, given the situation, the anything with offline segment is going to struggle. At the same time, what we are seeing is there are certain segments which are actually seeing a natural growth. That is, starting with the essentials. So we saw a lot of grocery businesses, have picked up really well in India. Even my mother can order online, so that's a significant change from before. The other segment we have seen, which has seen natural growth, is the entertainment industry in terms of things like sort of short video content companies, including TikTok, etc. As there's a huge surge in those. We have a couple of content investments. A company called Trell, which is based on similar experience, has seen huge industry. One industry that is going through a rapid change, and I think is benefited very much even in the longer run, is education industry. Anurag, you know it better than anybody else, given your exposure to the education side. It is impossible to build enough schools and colleges in India. So the only way it could be delivered is through digital means, and that's one segment that has seen a huge surge. As a matter of fact, the maid servant who come to our home, her kids are getting educated on WhatsApp now. So that will benefit our economy very well. The last one I want to say is healthcare segment. There is again, even in Delhi, for example, no matter what Mr. Kejriwal says, but we have 3 beds per 1,000 people. It's very less. So how are you going to, really bring healthcare to each and every home is through digital means. And I've seen a lot of companies which have
healthcare at home.
But Tej, you talk about digital education. It's all right to be digitally educated in the cosmopolitan areas, but how do you take digital, to the rural India?
Yeah, I think we need. As a matter of fact, we are looking at some of the, and you bring up a very, very good point. Actually, if you look at almost 80% of our schools, the teachers which are getting money is less than 3,000 rupees. I mean, that's like less than what a maid would make in an urban environment. Now, how do you bring them at par to what an urban child would get? It is actually a very, very big social need that we need to address, because it is a very big dichotomy that kids who go to the best colleges also pay high tuitions. I just don't understand it, right? And at the same time, we have kids who can't even afford schools. So one of the things that I have been always insisting on some of the entrepreneurs who come to me is that don't look at this urban segment, because there is more than many places offline or online who are serving this segment. Actually, I'm looking for companies and ideas which can actually go to bottom of the pyramid and to the tier 3, tier 4, which is, by the way, the largest market today. So Vineet, I think that problem can only be solved through technology. I don't see they're be building schools in Bihar in a small or running them even efficiently. Even if you build it, you can't run them because you don't have teachers, right? So if you want to get best teacher, you can put them in anywhere in Bangalore, Delhi. You can have one-to-many classes. I'm not talking about companies like Byju's, which have become $7 billion. I'm not talking about them. I'm saying we need to bring change at that particular bottom of the pyramid, people which deserve education. I think education is the only thing that can change this country. And that's what and Anurag actually has been a great supporter. I mean, he does his education conclave, which I've been part of. We want to encourage more and more people to serve those bottom of the pyramid things. And I think if Mr. Modi have to make some investment, he should really go down to that level and do it. Is my
Mr. Jain, we couldn't get enough of you. So again, you have to unmute yourself. What you heard everyone on how the economy can be brought back, how digital can be a force multiplier. Tell us, in the travel sector, which is all about experiences, do you think digital has a role to play, or the physical experiences will come back soon? Tell us, how do you see the hospitality sector coming back?
I understand. We need to understand the importance of the travel and tourism industry in the country. Without understanding all these things, it is difficult to explain to the government how our industry is being considered. It is being ignored by the government of India in its budget of 20 crore rupees.
So hence you will have to come up with ideas. Your industry will have to come up with ideas. Entrepreneurs will have to come up with ideas.
We shall have to keep our industry alive by the government of India.
Sure.
How is
that possible?
Yeah. By their schemes and the planning that they should bring on the floor. In fact, we should understand the problem. What is our problem? This is in fact a disaster for our country, not for our country, but for entire tourism and travel industry, where no flight is operating, no hotels are all closed.
We understand that.
Business is closed.
That we understand. We got to move on from there. Shraddha, you gave us very real inputs onto, what goes in the mind of an entrepreneur. Revenues are low, funding is not coming about. Tell us, a lot of people on our show, mine and Vinny's show, have said that, entrepreneurs need to reinvent for the times they are in. They shouldn't look for help from government. The reason they are entrepreneurs is because they're able to create opportunities when others are not able to create. So tell me, what are you doing as an entrepreneur to be able to be self-sustainable without any help?
Our industry is entirely different from other industries.
All right, Mr. Jain, that question was actually for Shraddha. We'll come back to you momentarily.
Okay.
Yeah, Shraddha, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think as entrepreneurs, I've seen my friends and colleagues around. I've seen panic. I've seen courage. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions and emotions around. They're doing the best they can. We are doing the best we can. The first thing I think every entrepreneur does is adapt. There's no way you can survive without adapting. There are different ways an entrepreneur would adapt. One could be short on cash, so they start cutting salaries or shutting down other ways of cutting productions and things like that. There could be other ways where there could be just too many spends which they have to reduce. There could be too many other projects they had in the pipeline. They've got to shut that. Everybody is adapting. That I'll tell you for sure. The other thing I think what I expect of the government to firstly and foremostly address, I think, is in the very near future is the biggest reason we all are sitting at home is today because we are actually fearful of this virus, which is that it was said to be a flu and then it was said to be nothing, and now we don't have beds enough. We were asked to sit home for 60 days and we come out on the other side of the lockdown without enough beds to actually cure us if we get affected. The problem is the fear has set in, right? The fear has set in, and the reason why we're not going to office is only because of this. Basically our expectation is that if the government puts enough money aside, another stimulus, only for getting the tests and the beds in place, most people will be happy to get back to work.
Thank you,
And
Shraddha, for that specific input.
Okay,
Get more money for testing and
before we
And
go
of course,
before we
no,
go any
I
further,
just-
in fact, Anurag is going to have a rapid round right after this. Before that, I just want to get a quick response from Mr. Fernandez as well. Mr. Fernandez, if you can hear me, sir.
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Please, yeah.
All right, there's a saying that, when life gives you lemons, you make a lemonade out of it. There is an opportunity in this pandemic as well. And who better to leverage that opportunity but the government of India? Do you think there has to be primary focus, on the various number of opportunities that will spur off because of this lockdown? Because obviously there's some industries which will have to fold up, but there are other industries and other tangents which will open up. Is anybody focusing on that?
No, they don't. Absolutely not. In fact, right now, they are gripped by crisis. And that's why I made a comment. They need to involve civil society to kind of ideate with them. Listen, they've got their plates full. They've got more than they can handle. And therefore, these are where civil society, the best opportunity in this. And everybody's talking from work from home. Work from home effectively means the king has left his castle. Who's the king? Data. Data for TCS, data for Wipro, data for IMI, data for any company is now leaving the four secure walls, the cyber secure walls of the castle. The work from home is going to be a huge labor arbitrage for India. We're going to get a lot of outsourcing.
All right. Sorry, sir, I'll have to cut you short. We only have a couple of minutes. And
So we'll ask everyone, where will be the Indian economy in 90 days? We'll start with Sujay. Sujay, Indian economy in the next 90 days. Short answer.
Where it is today.
Which is good or bad?
That's the shortest answer.
So you're saying you don't expect the
Nothing
demand
much.
to pick up in the next 60 days?
No, nothing.
Mr. Jain, Indian economy in the next 90 days.
I
Indian
understand.
hospitality sector in the next 90 days.
I understand it will go down. Because
Go down
our
beyond
travel
where
and
it is.
tour, yes, it will go down certainly, because our industry is not going to bounce back
All right.
in the next 1 year even.
All right.
Mr. Jain is saying that the hospitality industry is not going to bounce back for the next 12 months. Shraddha, Indian economy next 60 days.
down. I agree with Sajay.
Okay.
Or where it is.
Stage, Indian economy in the next 90 days.
I think it will reimagine and rediscover itself.
Good. On that positive note,
Not sure what
Sabas,
that
the
means.
Indian economy in the next 90 days.
Well, I think it's going to be a lot better than what we are in currently. We're going to see an upsurge. We're going to see a revival. And the entrepreneurial spirit will really be at its best.
Okay.
Gurpreet Singh,
I think from a digital point of view, it will keep getting better as and when the lockdown is getting opened up. People are going and buying products. E-commerce has already started spending again on the digital platforms. Previously, essential items have been the big spenders. But as and when the lockdown keeps opening up, people will start going and buying things up, which will give confidence to the brands to start spending back on digital. And I think, thankfully, digital will be one of the first industries should come back on track.
demand will come back in the next 90 days.
There's a new world. There's a new world that has emerged in the last 90 days. It's a combination of physical and digital.
Digital.
And this new world is where we'll have to operate and function and make it happen.
Okay.
Last but not least, Blaze, we started with you. We end with you. Where do you see the Indian economy going in the next 90 to 120 days?
I think I'm optimistic, Anurag, given the fact that you still have investments coming in. The Indian digital story is COVID resistant. I written an op-ed about it. And on that note, I'm very confident, given its COVID resistance, that's going to be the story. The government needs to make sure that that story is not killed.
All right. Whether I can do it or I can't do it, well, in both instances, I'm right. And, that sums up, the positivity and the negativity that has been expressed on this particular panel. But nevertheless, we are hopeful that the Indian economy is going to bounce back. There are impediments in place which we shall overcome. On that note, thank you, everyone, and Anurag, for being a part of this lovely and articulate show. Stay healthy and take care.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.